Hey y'all, welcome back to my Logic Pro 11 Mixing Fundamentals course. In this video, we're going to dive into using sends, buses, and aux tracks for adding time-based effects to your mix. Time-based effects include things like reverbs, delays, and modulation effects, such as a chorus or flanger effect. These effects help create a sense of space, depth, and width in your mix, and using sends with aux tracks allows you to apply these effects in a non-destructive way, and this also allows multiple tracks to share the same time-based effects. In this video, we'll add time-based effects specifically to the lead guitars and the guitar solo, and I'll also show you how to use Logic Pro 11's new Quantec Room Simulator to emulate a small tracking room, which adds a subtle but realistic ambiance to our rhythm guitar amp sims. And at the end of the video, I'll share a few tips on improving mono compatibility, especially for left and right panned rhythm guitars, so your mix doesn't fall apart when summed to mono. So let's actually start with the guitar solo, since that's the guitar that's going to get the most of this. Now, prior to track stacks, my workflow for this was completely different. I would just have a bunch of aux tracks down here on the far right side of the mixer, and that would just be all of my time-based effects, all on separate aux tracks. I would almost never bring them up in the tracks area. My workflow is a lot different now, because when I solo or mute a track stack, I also want to solo and mute its time-based effects, which you can still do if you do it the old way, but I'm less likely to have multiple instruments all sharing the same time-based effect. Like, I might use the same preset on multiple aux tracks, but I like the aux tracks to sort of be self-contained within the track stacks. And this also helps for later if my client wants me to bounce out stems for each group of instruments. It makes it really easy to include all of those time-based effects as well. And not only that, by bringing them into the tracks area in the track stack, I can also write automation on those aux tracks if need be. So what I typically do for lead guitars is I typically do reverb, delay, and some chorus. The chorus is more just like a thickening effect. I'm not a big fan, other than like maybe clean guitar, where I want the chorus like super noticeable. It's more of like a thickening effect is what I use it for. So what I'm going to do is on all three of these lead guitar tracks, I'm going to create some sends. I'm going to make this first one go to bus 9. I'll make the next one go to bus 10. And then bus 11. And one of the things I love about Logic is when you create buses from sends, it automatically creates auxiliary tracks or auxiliary channel strips or aux tracks in the mixer with that bus routing. And then I can just click and hold and I can drag these over. And if you drag them into the track stack like I have here, what'll happen is those aux tracks will automatically route their output to the track stack. So all these time-based effects are all going to be self-contained within this leads track stack. So this first one we'll call guitar verb for reverb, guitar delay, and guitar thicken. So I'm going to mute these two. Let's start with just the chorus or the thickening effect. Now, I actually use third-party effects for all of these, but I'm going to, again, stick with all Logic plugins. You can go with either the ensemble or the chorus. For this, I'm going to go with the chorus effect. It's just a simple chorus. You have your modulation rate, how quickly the modulation is moving, or more specifically, the rate at which the LFO that's controlling the modulation is moving. You have your intensity, how, detuned is the chorus going to sound, and then your mix blend. So all the way to the left is dry, all the way to the right is wet. When you're using time-based effects on aux tracks like this, you want the mix blend to be all wet signal and no dry signal in most situations. So let's hear what this chorus sounds like as is. I'm just going to option click on the send that's routing over to bus 11, and let's see what that sounds like. Now, if you pull up the intensity, you're really going to hear some detuning going on. I kind of like to border on the edge of going out of tune, but not too far out of tune. And I also, for this type of thing, I like to use slower rates because faster rates just kind of sound weird. And obviously I don't want it that, I don't want it cranked that loud. So I'm going to pull back the send on that. So it's just enough where if I mute it, I can hear a noticeable difference. But when I bring it back in, it's not like a super noticeable chorus effect. It's really just thickening the guitar solo is what it's doing. Next, let's add in our reverb. For this, let's try out the Quantec Room Simulator. This is a newer reverb in Logic. And for guitar, let's try out one of these medium rooms, for lead guitar at least. We'll use a smaller room for the rhythm guitar. And just for now, I'm going to mute the chorus effect just so we can hear the reverb by itself. Let's option click on that send to bring it up to unity. Now, one of the things that's really cool about the Quantec Room Simulator, as you can hear there are some presets in here that almost sound like slap delays and reverbs all built into one. So if you want a slap delay, like we're going to add to the vocals eventually, the Quantec is really great for this. I think I'm going to go back to that other one, though, the Acropolis preset. And once again, because we're loading this on an aux track, we don't want any of the dry signal in there, so we'll make sure that's pulled out. I am going to increase the reverb time on this. Let's try out the complex mode instead. Now, obviously, I don't want that much reverb, so I'll pull some of it out using the send amount. Cool, so we got a nice reverb tail coming off of that lead. And then for the delay, I'm just going to use the tape delay, although you could also substitute the stereo delay if you like having two different delays going on. So I'm going to use the tape delay. And for this, I think I'm just going to go with a dotted quarter note. Once again, you want the wet signal up, you want the dry signal all the way down. And one of the things I love about the tape delay is you can spread the delay, and you can also make it more diffuse, so it sounds less like an echo and more of this diffuse thing. And we're going to do one more trick with the delay to make it sound even more diffuse in just a bit. And again, another thing I love about this delay is you can filter out what the delay signal is. So you don't want the full frequency range in the delay, because that's just going to sound like an echo. We don't want an echo. We want a delay. We want it to sound filtered. So I can filter it out just the mid-range or just the top end, whatever, sounds best to you. So I'll just go ahead and option click on that send to get it going. And if you feel like the delay is really just like ringing out for too long, what you can do is you can dial back the feedback. Now, the last little trick I like to do, let's pull in all of these time-based effects now. The last little trick I like to do is I like to feed my delays into the reverb. So what I can do here is I can create another send. Let's go to the same bus that is the input of the reverb track. So we go to bus, we go up to leads, there's bus 9, the guitar reverb, and now we're feeding the delay signal into the reverb track. I'm going to put this in pre-fader mode, and what that means is no matter what I do here with the fader on this aux track, the same amount of delay is going to go into the reverb, so that can be controlled here. And what I find is this creates a really nice, more diffuse, soft delay type of sound. It almost creates like a delay reverb bed under the lead to sort of support it. Although I think I have too much reverb there. Let's pull that back a bit. Yeah, awesome. Let's hear that in the mix. Cool. And then at any point, if I want to adjust the amount of reverb, delay, or chorus I have on the guitar solo, I can adjust it from here. Just keep in mind that because we're in post-pan mode, if I make any adjustments to the pan or to the volume, that's going to affect the level that's going over to the sends. So for tracks like the lead guitars that aren't like actually a solo, but are panned, you may opt to use the post-fader mode. And what that does is it puts the pan after the volume fader, so the volume fader still affects the send, but before the pan. So if you have tracks that are panned left and right, you're not going to be feeding just a signal on the left or just over to the right into the aux track. So you'll get a more centered time-based effect for those tracks, which I'm going to do with the lead guitars here. In fact, I don't think I want really much of any delay on the lead guitars. I'm really just going to use more reverb and more of the thickening effects. So let's go ahead and mute the solo track and let's solo the lead stack. Yeah, just a tiny, tiny little bit of delay, a little bit of chorus, and a little bit of reverb as well. I almost feel like the reverb needs a little more top end in it. So let's just pull up this filter here. And one other thing I might do to these is I think I'm going to pull out this soar. That kind of gives it a little bit more gain. I want less gain on these leads. They're just a little too crispy for me. Let's see what that sounds like. Cool. Just dialed back a few things. And again, because I've got all of these right here, if a client or the person you're collaborating with says, hey, let's just dial back all of the time-based effects a little bit, you can just dial them back just like that. If you want a little bit more, you can pull them up, a little bit less. So you can sort of globally pull them up and down for everything in that track stack. And again, they're all self-contained within that track stack. So if I want to hear all of those instruments along with the time-based effects, it's just a matter of soloing and playing just that track stack by itself. And it also gives me the ability to automate those aux tracks as well. Maybe you want a little more reverb in one spot, a little less reverb in another spot. You can do that. So we'll come back to that later when we jump into automation. So for the rhythm guitars, I'm not really going to add a whole lot, but I do want to add just a touch of like a recording booth reverb, just enough to make it sound like the amps are actually in a room and not like super bone dry. So let's go ahead and add a send on these. Let's go to bus 12, and I'll just call this guitar room. Click and hold, drag it over into the track stack. Once again, you'll see that aux track is here in the track stack now, going to bus 7, which is the input of the rhythm guitars track. It's also going to hit the other effects on here too. That's another thing. Any bus processing you have on the track stack, your aux tracks are going to run through as well. Now, that may be something you want, and that may be something that you don't want. If you don't want that, then you can just simply pull your aux tracks out of the track stack and have them go straight to the stereo output and completely bypass the track stack altogether. But that's not what I like to do. I like to have them all kind of be one cohesive unit. Okay, so for guitar room reverb, what I'm going to do is just set these to unity. You just option click on the send amount, by the way, to do that. And then I'm going to add the Quantec Room Simulator again. For this, I want something that's sort of like a small space. So let's go to small rooms. Let's start with this, and we'll just kind of cycle through them. I'm going to go ahead and solo out the room as well. Oh yeah, I like that one. So real short reverb. You can even make it shorter if you want. You can even decrease the room size if you like. I'm going to pull it back up there. Cool. Now, once again, if you want, you can make these post fader, so that the left and right guitars are not panned left and right in the aux track. Or you can make it, pre-fader if you want that. It's really a matter of, what sounds best to your ear. Let's try it both ways. Yeah, so there, it almost sounds, in post fader, it sounds like the reverb's like in the center right in front of me. Whereas if I do post pan, it almost adds to the width of the guitars in a really nice way. So let's do that. Let's pull back that reverb time just a little bit. I think the rhythm guitar needs a little more mid-range boost as well. Maybe not quite as much room reverb in there. Real quick, let's throw the gain plugin on the rhythm guitar track. We're going to put that in mono. And then after that, we're going to add, under metering, the correlation meter. We're going to check the mono compatibility of this track. So in stereo, it sounds like this. And for the most part, the correlation is above 0, so it's mostly going to be mono compatible. But let's drop this to mono and see how that affects the room and also how it affects the guitar tone. Actually pretty good for mono compatibility. You always want to check your mono compatibility on your rhythm guitars or any sort of doubled instruments, because sometimes if there's not enough tonal variation or timing variation between the two hard panned channels, this can cause phase cancellation issues in mono. So if you listen to your song in mono, like most portable Bluetooth speakers, or if you hear your song played on a sound system that's wired in mono, these can make those stereo tracks get partially canceled out in mono. Now, if your guitars are getting canceled out in mono, I have 3 main recommendations to fix this, other than trying a phase flip on one of the channels, which likely is just going to make it worse. 1, you can try a different guitar tone in one channel, try a different amp sim model, or even try a different EQ on one guitar than on the other. That'll give some tonal variation between the two channels. Number 2, don't ever perfectly time align your guitar parts. Even if you are quantizing your guitar parts with flex time, don't do it at 100%. Leave some slight timing variations, because these variations are what actually create the illusion of a big, wide stereo guitar part. And number 3, if all else fails, try tracking a third rhythm guitar part, or go find another unused take of the rhythm guitar and put it dead center, but really low in the mix. So you'll barely hear this in the context of the full mix, but if your left and right guitars are disappearing in mono, that center channel will still be there in mono to reinforce your rhythm parts. Okay, so I've got some time-based effects on my rhythm guitars and lead guitars. Let's hear this whole section one more time. So one thing you're probably starting to notice is as the guitars sound more and more present and full in the mix, we're starting to lose the drum mix. The drums are starting to become a little less punchy. They're not really cutting through the mix as much. And so we're going to deal with that in the next video by applying some time-based effects to the drums and some drum-specific time-based effects that can really fatten up the drums, especially the snare drum. So we'll get to that in the next video. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel to see more content like this. As always, thank you so much for the support, and thanks for watching.